Happy holidays, everybody, and Tony here with my review of Verdi's Rigoletto with conductor Sesto Quattrini, which I saw at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. This marks the 5th time I saw Jan Boss's production of Verdi's Rigoletto at the Deutsche Oper Berlin because I wanted to see and hear Julia Muzychenko perform the role of Gilda. I was quite excited to see Miss Muzychenko sing Gilda, considering that I have mainly followed her career through viewing her repertoire, ranging from light roles like Papagena and the Sandman and the Dew Fairy from Zauberflöte and Hänsel and Gretel respectively, to more agile lyric coloratura soprano roles like Olympia from Le Comte of Man, to her most recent engagements as the Queen of the Night, Violetta, and of course, Gilda. I went into her performance not knowing what to expect from Julia Muzychenko, and after I saw and heard her live, I was quite pleased with what I managed to hear from Julia Muzychenko's voice. First of all, it had a pleasant, silvery, sweet, and lovely timbre suitable for Gilda in the very tender moments. Specifically when she was singing Caro Nome, she was able to use her light lyric coloratura soprano voice to her advantage to make Gilda an innocent, loving, self-sacrificing, and gentle soul who loves the Duke body and soul and deeply cares for her father. Her coloratura work, whether they be found in her long sweeping, spun out legato singing, all the way up to her pinpoint accurate staccato singing, and even some of her stratospheric high notes, more specifically an E flat, as well as some D flats here and there, she managed to just nail them pretty well. And her soft-toned, silvery, and sweet light lyric coloratura soprano voice was also reflected in how she acted the role in terms of her not only looking the part, but also being so lovely to witness as Gilda. And vocally speaking, Julia Muzychenko was not one of those Tweety Bird super high singers who could flaunt her high notes here and there, especially the type of soprani leggeri whose high notes tend to extend from high D flat all the way up to beyond a high F. She's not one of those sopranos. She is a naturally lovely light lyric / coloratura soprano who is such an ace in roles that call for innocence and sweetness such as Gilda. Despite all the praises that I've sung for Miss Julia Muzychenko in her vocal performance as Gilda, there were some reservations that I did have about her voice. First of all, there were several occasions where she did not coordinate head voice and chest voice, thus having her chest tones sound very hollow and unsupported, let alone inaudible, especially in the more charged up moments, specifically in the storm scene, where she has to go all out with her voice before singing diminuendo and dolce when she dies. The storm scene is a challenge for many a coloratura soprano singing Gilda because she does have to sing over that orchestra and also present a whole lot of dramatic intensity. And while Julia Muzychenko does that in terms of her acting, her voice tended to be drowned out by the orchestra, which was due to her not coordinating head voice and chest voice to produce that more powerful effect in terms of just letting her voice sing over that orchestra. And trust me when I say that there have been many a light lyric coloratura and lyric coloratura soprano who have been way more coordinated with head voice and chest voice than Julia Muzychenko, such as Hilde Guden, Reri Grist, Jeanette Scavotti, Roberta Peters, Ileana Kotrubash, Judith Blagan, and Luciana Serra. And if we're talking soprani leggeri who could also sing the Caro Nome, inserting that high E, I would never ever go wrong with Luciana Serra and Hilde Guden because they had the complete package of not only hitting those top notes well, but also having good squillo. And yes, Julia Muzychenko has a pretty nice voice, but pretty and nice are not enough to sing Gilda. She also has to develop her head voice and chest voice coordination so that she doesn't sound too hollow in the lower register, let alone have a middle voice that can be a little bit on the shaky side. She just needs to continue developing her core, and there will come a time when she does develop her core, she can be able to challenge herself with more florid coloratura soprano roles and more challenging roles such as Zerbinetta from Ariadne auf Naxos, Lakme from Lakme, Philine from Mignon, Dinora, Praskovia from L'Étoile du Nord, Blanchen from Die Entführung aus dem Serail, Bastien from Bastian und Bastien, Lisette from La Rondine, Eurydice from Orphée aux Enfers, Edwige from Robinson Crusoe, and both Zdenka and the Fiacchermilli from Arabella. These are definitely roles that I would love to see and hear Julia Muzychenko in, considering that she does have great material to work with and a fine voice that can benefit from a lot more polishing and a lot more thoroughness in her technique. But I believe Julia Muzychenko can accomplish all of those demands and more because she does have great material to work with, and I'm pretty sure that she can grow as a singer as well as a singing actress if she keeps on developing her core and makes sure that she coordinates head voice and chest voice well to not only build up her top notes a lot more, but make sure that her voice is homogeneous throughout all the registers. While she did do a serviceable job as Gilda, and let alone a really good job in terms of maintaining that silvery, light lyric coloratura soprano voice of hers, I still would love to hear a lot more development from Julia Muzychenko in her voice, especially where her core is concerned, because she does have a brilliant future ahead of her, and she is on the cusp of a very interesting and brilliant career. I just do not want to see her waste her talents on abusing her technique, let alone taking her technique for granted. Nevertheless, I still have to salute Julia Muzychenko for striking an interesting first impression on me, considering the material that she's working with and the promise that she has as a lovely light lyric coloratura soprano with a delicate and sweet sounding voice and a whole lot of potential to keep on growing. It was a pleasure to hear Hye-Young use the lyrical side of her voice to sing La Contessa di Ceprano. She was able to imbue this role with youthfulness, glamour, and charm, all thanks to her trademark lyric coloratura soprano voice. And I do hope to hear her one day as Gilda, because she does have great material to work with, and I'm pretty sure that she will also be just as good as Gilda. But as she was as La Contessa di Ceprano, she was elegant, she was graceful, and she used her trademark silvery lyric coloratura soprano voice to her advantage and find the best in terms of imbuing La Contessa di Ceprano with elegance, charm, and beauty. Alexandra Diachenko was creamy toned, lovely, and sweet sounding as the court lady, or known in the original libretto as the page boy. But in this production as the lady of the court or the lady in waiting, she was able to be elegant and charming and absolutely gorgeous on stage, helped with her mezzo-soprano voice, which, although I do prefer a lighter soprano voice to sing this role, she was still able to inhabit the lady in waiting with charm, beauty, elegance, and a whole lot of charisma. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for Miss Alexandra Diachenko, because she has wonderful material to work with and she has a voice that has a lot of promise for great growth to come. I was quite conflicted with Nicole Piccolomini's double duty as Maddalena and Giovanna, because although she had good chest tones and she worked really well with her trademark mezzo-soprano slash contralto voice, she did have some pitch problems, and there was a couple of times where she wobbled, especially in her first act. That was not to diminish Nicole Piccolomini's talent, because she was a thoroughly dedicated singing actress who could bring in some moments of tenderness as well as some moments where she can be quite the hustler as Giovanna, who is Gilda's confidant, and even seductiveness as well as an earthy beauty to be found as Maddalena. So theatrically, she does manage to portray Giovanna's more opportunistic side and Maddalena's slightly more complex and vampish side really, really well. It's just that her voice suffered from a wobble and a tremolo and other inconsistencies. At least when she sang Maddalena, she had her chest tones at the ready, she sang way better than when she sang Giovanna, and she was able to produce such a thoroughly engaging character. Nevertheless, there have been clear voices for Maddalena, such as Mignon Dunn and Rosalind Elias, and equally clear sounding voices for Giovanna, such as Anastasio and Corina Vozza. But I totally digress because Nicole Piccolomini managed to do a fine job in both roles, even with the caveat that there was a wobble and inverted vibrato to be found in her voice. At least she did have good chest tones, and she was able to make a fine characterization of both Maddalena's sultry side and Giovanna's more opportunistic side really well. Andrei Danilov was thoroughly handsome and charismatic as the Duke of Mantua. He was elegant, he was dashing, he was able to make me eat out of the palms of his hands, and he boasted his trademark full lyric tenor voice to make his voice ring throughout the theater with exuberance, charisma, and a whole lot of virility. It was announced that Andrei Danilov did suffer from a bit of a cold, and there were also occasions in which some of his high notes did sound a bit strangled, but there were also several occasions when Andrei Danilov just let his voice out with pure abandon and showed a lot of perseverance and a whole lot of chutzpah as the Duke of Mantua. Yes, he was also quite limited with his extra top notes, because whenever I listened to Possente Amor Mi Chiama, I would expect any light lyric tenor, let alone lyric tenor, to hit the high D to cap everything up. Especially when I think of tenors such as Alfredo Kraus, Barry Morell, Luciano Pavarotti, Franco Bonisoli, Francisco Araiza, Chris Merritt, and Marcello Giordani. Especially where the likes of Alfredo Kraus, Luciano Pavarotti, and Franco Bonisoli are concerned, with Franco Bonisoli being my number one favorite Duke of Mantua, especially with his trademark ringing high D in Possente Amor Mi Chiama, and following suit are Alfredo Kraus and Luciano Pavarotti. All thanks to their clarion voices and great use of overtones. And even though some other tenors such as Jussi Björling, Richard Tucker, Eugene Conley, Jan Pierce, Rudolf Schock, Gianni Poggi, Gianni Raimondi, and Giuseppe Di Stefano are not particularly well known for hitting the high D in Possente Amor Mi Chiama, but were lyric tenors who were very well known for their charismatic and exuberant portrayals of the Duke. They nevertheless had beautifully full lyric tenor voices to make the Duke's exuberance come to life. Nevertheless, with Andrei Danilov, he was still able to do a great job as the Duke of Mantua, even with some of his limited top notes. And I could definitely forgive a lot of them, because Andrei Danilov had a superb technique that helped him throughout the evening, and he had a stunning stage presence that managed to make me thoroughly glued to the edge of my seat and totally enthralled with his overall performance as the Duke. So bravo to Andrei Danilov as the Duke for doing such a laudable job using his fine lyric tenor voice to make this character, who is otherwise unlikable, exuberant and charismatic. Paul Kaufmann was a fine Matteo Borsa, using his trademark character tenor voice to his greatest abilities. He was able to make such a memorable portrayal of this courtier and be just as strong as a singer as Andrei Danilov is as the Duke. After seeing him yesterday as Zarastro, Patrick Getty managed to jump into the assassin's Sparfucile's shoes and just sing the absolute heck out of this role. And once again, he had his imposing stage presence and equally imposing basso profondo voice that made me thoroughly enthralled with his overall performance and made me want to root for him every single time he appeared on stage. He was like a lion prowling for his meal and just waiting for the right moment when he just unleashes his claws and lets out a huge roar in that big basso profondo voice. And even though it is still quite throaty, at least it managed to grow better in size and grow better in presence. Yes, he could definitely benefit from a lot more squillo singing and sing way more pharyngally, just like how many of his predecessors accomplished it, such as Ezio Pinza, Alexander Kipnis, Ignacio Rufino, Giulio Neri, Jerome Hines, Cesare Siepi, Nikolai Gyaurov, Bonaldo Giotti, Agostino Ferrin, Ivo Vinco, Giovanni Gusmerolli, Josef Greindl, Gottlob Frick, and Kurt Böhme. Those were real mighty basses with not only great low notes, but great amounts of squillo, especially where the more Italianate singers such as Kipnis, Pinza, Rufino, Neri, Siepi, Gyaurov, and Giotti are concerned. Even with Patrick Getty's issue with throatiness, that is still a small price to pay for what was otherwise a fine, dedicated, and totally involved portrayal as Sparafocile, and he accomplished everything that he needed to do with his tall and handsome stage presence and his trademark basso profondo voice that could shake the heck out of me and the rest of the audience with that might of his, as well as his equally great musicianship to make this character come to life and make his portrayal as Sparafocile effective and totally charismatic. So I salute Patrick Getty for his exceptional vocal and theatrical portrayal as Sparafocile. Byung-gil Kim managed to make the best out of Count Monterone, all thanks to his rough and rumbling and quite crude trademark bass baritone / basso cantante voice. And he also did sing Sparafocile, but I argue that Monterone is a much better fit for Byung-gil Kim because he is able to act the absolute heck out of this role with his voice, which is crude but totally effective for such a rough character like Monterone. And yes, it could have used a lot more focus and clarity, such as the voices found in Plinio Clavassi and Antonio Zerbini, and lest I forget a very surprising singer who accomplished this role, Fernando Correnna, as Correnna, Clavassi, and Zerbini had squillo and equally homogeneous voices from bottom to top. Nevertheless, Byung-gil Kim managed to win me over as Count Monterone with his rough, crude, and absolutely emotional bass baritone / basso cantante voice that he managed to make such a fine portrayal out of this character, and I salute him for all of his efforts for making Count Monterone come to life with everything that he's got, from pathos to fury to rage and to sheer virile charisma, all to make Count Monterone a fully fledged character. Roman Burdenko definitely won me over as Rigoletto. Rigoletto. And my goodness, was he able to just sing the absolute heck out of this role, complete with full abandon and full power, and also with a lot of emotional investment, all reflected in his dramatic baritone voice. His voice has actually grown in incision and in presence, and even though it did sound pretty throaty, it was still a voice that had colors and that had a lot of nuances to be found in the somber moments and in the more emotionally charged up moments where he was able to just go all out. Yes, there are more complete voices that can accomplish the tender moments as well as the more charged up moments, such as the ones found in Cheryl Milnes, Riccardo Stracciari, Nicolai Erlea, Cornell McNeil, Robert Merrill, Leonard Warren, and Lawrence Tibbett. Those were complete baritones who owned Rigoletto and who also owned his music, all thanks to their wide-ranging and totally complete techniques. However, that is not to undermine the talent and the sheer masculinity and the sheer charged up dedication that Roman Burdenko possessed as Rigoletto, let alone many of the Verdi baritone roles that he has been singing. He was still a dedicated and thoroughly involved singing actor in terms of giving Rigoletto his voice and making his voice present throughout the theater, and do so in a way that just left me totally breathless. Therefore, I salute Roman Burdenko for using that unique timbre of his to make Rigoletto a character that I not only feel for, but also thoroughly root for throughout the opera. Kyle Miller struck again from his tenure as the first priest from the Zauberflöte to singing Marullo, another one of the courtiers and one of the Duke's buddies. And his trademark cavalier baritone voice was still as handsome and as dashing as ever, and he just made me swoon, all thanks to how fine, dashing, elegant, and richly toned his cavalier baritone voice was. And there is also an exceptional future for Mr. Miller in a lot of the great, noble cavalier baritone roles such as Valentin and Mercutio, so long as he continues to develop his technique. Kyle Miller definitely won me over as Marullo, and I was definitely hooked every time he appeared on stage, complete with virility and complete with charm. Yung Kwan-o was a thoroughly resonant sounding Count Ceprano, and he used that bass baritone voice of his to make him a thoroughly handsome and thoroughly authoritative figure, thus making me totally swooning for Yung Kwan-o's Count Ceprano with every single fiber of my being. He also has good technique found in his bass baritone voice. It didn't sound throaty at all. In fact, it sounded present and it sounded thoroughly clear from top to bottom. Artur Garbas was just as strong as the court usher, all thanks to his fine cavalier baritone voice that was plush and that had that good sense of clarity going for it. And there is also a brilliant future for Artur Garbas in a lot of the bigger roles. So here's also hoping that he does continue to develop his technique in the best possible way. So overall, this singing was actually quite good. Julia Muzychenko struck a very interesting and fine first impression on me. She has a lot of great material to work with. She's got a promising career in both the light lyric soprano and lyric coloratura soprano roles, especially where not only Gilda is concerned, but also the likes of Lakme and the Nora and Feline, among other roles suitable for her voice. She does have a fine instrument that she can work with. It's just that she needs to grow more in core and make sure that her head voice and chest voice participation is thoroughly engage if she is to sing not only her high notes a lot more clearly, but make sure that she's got good low notes to make her voice thoroughly complete. And she was backed up by some really strong performers found in Roman Burdenko's incisive and emotionally invested Rigoletto, Andrei Danilov's dashing and handsome Duke of Mantua, Patrick Getty's scary and intimidating Sparfucile, Byung-gil Kim's really strong and really involving Count Monterone, and even though Nicole Piccolomini did have some vocal problems, such as an inverted vibrato and some wobbles here and there, she was still quite chesty as both Maddalena and Giovanna. So I do have to salute all of these main singers for what they were able to accomplish, and it was also helped by some really fine performances from the minor characters found in Kyle Miller, Paul Kaufman, Yung Kwang-oh, Artur Garbas, Hye-Young Moon, and Alexandra Dyachenko. Everybody contributed well, and they all deserve a lot of salutes and a whole lot of laudability for what they were able to accomplish vocally and theatrically. But when all is said and done, Roman Burdenko, Andrei Danilov, and Julia Muzychenko, and lest I forget about Patrick Getty, all carried tonight's performance at the tips of their fingers and even carried the entire weight of the whole show with everything that they've got, and it was glorious in their own way. The conducting done by Sesto Quattrini was quite good. Yes, there were occasions where the singers and the orchestra didn't really communicate that much with each other, and there were times that there was some dragging to be found, but Sesto Quattrini still kept up the tempo, which was quite brisk and quite vibrant, and he even had some good intensity in the storm scene. He was able to give some nuance to the orchestra and some nuance to the text, and lest I forget about how he conducted Bella Figlia dell'Amore. He also showed the juxtaposition of Maddalena's flirtiness toward the Duke and Gilda's sadness of feeling like she has been betrayed by making Maddalena sing a little bit more quickly and Gilda sing a lot more plaintively and sadly, thus showing that juxtaposition with the speed and the tempo very well and with a lot of nuance. So he was able to be a reliable conductor for the orchestra and the chorus. And what more can I say about the chorus and the orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin? Everybody was reliable and everybody managed to just win me over tonight in their performances and their collaborations with the main singers. So overall, Julia Muzychenko managed to do a pretty laudable job as Gilda, considering how she was able to use her elegant and lovely stage presence to make this character come to life. And it was also reflected on her light lyric coloratura soprano voice that had that silvery timbre and that sweet, delicate, and refined tone that managed to bring out a lot of innocence and sweetness. And it does need a lot of time to keep on growing and also keep on growing in dimension, color, and a whole lot more size if she ever tries to have a go at these more challenging coloratura soprano roles. And even though she was able to strike a fine first impression on me and would love to see her career grow, she was bolstered by some really great performances accomplished by Andrei Danilov, Roman Burdenko, and Patrick Getty, as well as Byung-gil Kim, respectively as the Duke, Rigoletto, Sparfucile, and Monterone. These 5 singers managed to do such great jobs with everything that they've got, and even with Nicole Piccolomini's pitch problems and vocal problems in terms of her inverted vibrato, as well as her problems with some coordination, she was still theatrically involving as both Giovanna and Maddalena, all thanks to her mezzo-soprano / contralto voice that did have some pretty good chest tones, even with some of the vocal flaws to be found. Nevertheless, she was still as fine as a singing actress, and she was able to continue to give the goods as both Maddalena and Giovanna. Therefore, they were able to do really well in their roles, and they did not let whatever vocal troubles they had hold them back. They just kept marching forward and continued to grow from strength to strength. And for those of you who caught this performance of Verdi's Rigoletto at the Deutsche Oper Berlin, what did you think of it? Did you feel that Julia Muzychenko did a fine job as Gilda? Did you feel that her voice was also suitable for the role? Did you also feel that she could actually grow more in dimension and coordination between head voice and chest voice? Was there another singer who stole her thunder, such as Andrei Danilov as the Duke, Roman Burdenko as Rigoletto, Patrick Getty as Sparfocille, Byung-Gil Kim as Monterone, and Nicole Piccolomini as both Giovanna and Maddalena? Or did you feel like the singing, especially from Julia Muzychenko as Gilda, was not really to your liking? Please comment below and let me know. Well, that's it for my review of Verdi's Rigoletto at the Deutsche Oper Berlin, starring Julia Muzychenko as Gilda. Tune in tomorrow for my review of Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor, starring Aigulkis Matulina as Lucia Ashton. So until then, good night everybody and happy holidays!